Yeah, the Kenya national women's volleyball team beat Peru 3-1 in the World Grand Prix in Canberra, Australia, to emerge over the winners of the World Grand Prix Group 3. With the victory, the team has qualified for promotion to Group 2 in next year's edition. Kenya went into the final round of Group 3, buoyed by their win against host Australia on Saturday. Despite Malkia strikers falling behind the first set of the match, 25-21, due to poor back row reception, head coach David Lungao restored faith in his starting pack, who went on to win the second set 25-17. The third and fourth set were all Malkias, as the African Queens claimed a 25-22 and 25-23 win to win the gold medal in Canberra. Well, I'm very sure over the weekend, maybe you are keeping tabs on this volleyball team that was playing in Australia. I don't know how much you guys follow. I know you are rugby people, but then you follow the Kenyan teams, wherever. Gerald?
For sure. Yes, Toskin. Followed. Follow all of them. Kenyan Premier League, volleyball, we follow everything. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, how important do you think that Kenyan win in the volleyball was for Kenyans, at least in the, the sports fraternity?
I think it's a grand thing that we finally won an international title. We've been knocking on the door for quite a while now, and this probably, well, hopefully sparks the beginning of new things for Kenya volleyball, and we really applaud them for their efforts.
Of course, and you are, like we say, you are the CEO of Rugby Union. We are made to understand that Kenya is playing Spain in one of the test matches in rugby. Can you bring us up to speed as to what is going on in Rugby Union?
There's a lot of development in rugby right now. Obviously, there's the pseudo crisis that was created last Friday. I say pseudo because it's not really a crisis, but it's bad for the image of the game, especially because we've been working on a lot of stuff behind the scenes. But looking at the game we're playing this weekend against Spain, it's one of 6 internationals that we're playing as a 15-a-side. It's the first time in, I guess in Kenya's rugby history that we're going to have, we have had 6 internationals, on a trot in the season. And one of the major things we're doing this weekend is we want to honor our rugby greats of the past. So we're going to have the 1985 team that played Zimbabwe at the RFUEA ground. We're going to have a little ceremony to try and honor those people. We've been tracking them down. A lot of them have agreed to come to the stadium on Saturday, and I'd like to ask people to come out and honor these heroes on whose shoulders we stand today.
And especially after Kenya, beating Portugal in one of the friendlies. Now you are bringing another Iberian side. I'm very sure the fans will have a treat, Gerald.
It was fantastic. The first game against Portugal, who are higher ranked than Kenya. We expected quite a contest, if I do say so, but our boys really put in the work, the effort, and they beat them. You saw automatically our ranking jumped overnight. And these internationals that we've played over the past couple of months have had a great effect. Don't forget that in Kenya, there's a big confusion between 15s and 7s. So the 7th game is synonymous with Kenya because we do well internationally. And not much has been said about our 15th game. So this is the first time that we've stepped up to the plate. Our boys have done very well against, other than the slump in away, I think that was in Zimbabwe. But playing against Tunisia and hopefully doing very well when we play Spain this weekend.
That you think would really help to wipe out what you talked about, the pseudo crisis that was generated on Friday?
Yeah, that was a bit of a mishap. It was unfortunate that it happened.
What exactly happened? Maybe for the sake of our viewer, I know the rugby players had a press conference where they said that all is not well within their ranks.
True, all is not well within their ranks, but it has been, the whole issue is revolving around finance. It has been no secret that the Kenya Rugby Union has been struggling financially in the past. We had our SGM a couple of weeks ago, special general meeting, which was specifically called to address the matter of finances. Because at the AGM early on in March, where Richard Omoela was elected, the finances had some challenges that the affiliates had questions about. And they asked us to go away, look at those finances again and bring them back and present them to the SGM. And the accounts were not good. They were public, they were all there for everyone to see. So it's no surprise, and we haven't hidden this from anybody, that we have had an issue. Our sevens, we've been in consultation with our sevens management. We met them all through last week, right up until Wednesday last week, where we discussed all these various details that they were bringing out on Saturday. And we came to what we thought was an amicable solution or conclusion. In the middle of that meeting, we got confirmation of certain remittances that we were going to receive from our sponsor as we sat and talked on Wednesday.
Yes.
And, you know, everyone, I thought at least, was pleased with that. And so you can imagine my shock, horror, and dismay when I see a picture of them sitting at a press conference on Friday saying that nobody cares.
And of course, they say that the salaries have not been paid for 3 months. I don't know if it will be an overstatement by the players and the technical bench to say that nobody cares.
It is, definitely. Because we talk to them all the time. Like I said, as late as Wednesday last week, I sat with them in a meeting, yeah, and told them these were the issues. And they presented the concerns of the players as well. And we moved on from there to talk about what our training plans could be, participation in the National Seventh Circuit, going forward into all that stuff. And we were all in agreement as in what was going to happen going forward. So when it is said that we don't know, or we don't care, or we don't understand, that is really not true.
Gerald, did it surprise you that the players went to the press and addressed a press conference where they say that nobody cares, their salaries have not been paid, the 2011 high performance program has not even taken off, no equipment? The CEO is here saying that he is surprised that they had a meeting before, but then they went to the press. What's your take?
It is very, very baffling, especially considering that our rugby team for the sevens is the top paid. They are the top paid professional players in Kenya. My expectation, considering how they've been treated over the past couple of years, was the approach would have been different and would have expected it be the same. And seated there, you couldn't help wondering, the people who finance our programs, what are they thinking? When their senior brand ambassadors are on the screen saying we've been neglected and we've been put aside. And I guess that's what ails all of Kenyan sports. My expectation was they would have done it differently. They have a platform through which they can meet the management and discuss their issue. To be honest, we've been taking quite a number of big hits as a sport. We cannot afford to take any more. The last elections in March at least gave us a platform from which we can be able to jump forward.
And of course, with the change of management, and
yes,
when Richard Omoela came in, all the critics of KRU said, okay, at least for once, they have a calm guy there who can inspire the confidence of sponsors. Yes. What has happened? What has happened since he got in?
I don't think, I mean, you cannot, the challenges we're facing are a manifestation of issues that have been ailing our sport for the last 3-4 years. They're coming out now. See, you cannot expect Richard to come in, and he's been in office since March 17th to be exact. You cannot expect him to come in March, from March, and in 3 months he's wiped out all the issues of the past. It takes time. We're trying to put structures in place right now that are going to handle all these issues, and Gerald here will even tell you we've had meetings with them in terms of looking at how our fixtures run. We need to probably run our fixtures differently so that they benefit everybody, not just some. So it takes time. I mean, I came in February in terms of we're looking at ways to try and to professionalize how we run the sport. So it's not just a heart thing, an emotional thing anymore. It's got to be professional and run it as a business. And some of the results that you're seeing today are a result of some of those steps that have been put in place. For the first time in Kenya's history, we're running 6 teams, 6 national teams, 5 national teams at the same time. Our national sevens team, our 15-a-side senior team, the Kenya A, which is our second team, we're running a women's team, and we're running the 19th team, and all of them are playing at the same time. So there's a lot that's happening in terms of developing the sport, in terms of growing the sport. And the sevens team is just one of many, right? It is also wrong to imagine that it's your right to play for Kenya. It's an honor, it's a privilege. There are 440 million odd Kenyans out there who would like to play as well. So when you're one of 12, and you're insisting on holding everybody else at ransom because of what you believe.
Is there a performance that has really helped you guys get sponsors? We are aware of your sponsorship with Kenya Airways, and it's all in the public domain. So maybe the players are asking, if there's all this money, how come that we are not getting what is meant for us? Because it is the Rugby Sevens team that has really put you guys on the map. Gerald.
If and these are my personal views. I personally am not able to reconcile that upwards 200 million shillings is spent on 20 players in a year, whereas 700 players in the league survive on 1,000 shillings a week. 1,000 shillings a week.
That's scary statistic.
Yes. Yeah. And whereas probably there is a model that gives value back to the sponsor and allows these players of ours to earn more than any other athlete in Kenya, it comes also with a responsibility. Playing for the national sevens team and being on an international platform allows our guys to get serious endorsements from brands. And you know, Kenyan brands don't touch you unless you're an international.
Unless you're international.
Yes, you can be the top scorer for KPL, they'll never touch you. And that's why you find only athletes and our rugby guys are able to get those endorsements. So there's a lot of goodwill, and they are also riding on the back of work done down here, because they must have come from somewhere, and they came from these clubs.
Ronald has just told us that what we are seeing is a manifestation of what has been happening in the last 4 to 3 years. And the players are even talking about the 2011 high performance program that has not been implemented. How then, Gerald, would you describe that kind of thing? How did we get into such a position? Is it dereliction of duty, and yet we have people being elected into office?
I think what happened, two election cycles have really messed us up. There's an election around about 2010, where for the first time, we could see a lot of expenditure during the electioneering period. And then there were the midterm elections in 2013. And the people who came at the turn of the tide, when now a lot of money was being injected into the game. And this has created a lot of problems, a lot of infighting. So this is the first time in 2015 that we had an election that sought to try and sort out those issues. Obviously, on the other side, you can hear a bit of noise, because some of the people who came in at the time in 2010, whereas they had their hearts in the right place, did not have the capacity to manage the resources that were there.
But now we have the CEO, Bukusi. I don't know, what are his challenges, trying to re-engineer the whole thing, because you are sitting in between politicians. What are the challenges, and what exactly are you doing to maybe bridge all that that's happening?
Well, my first challenge obviously has been to try and separate the running of the sport from the politics, because politics will always be there. And like Gerald rightly says, we have passion, and all of us are passionate about the sport, but we've got to channel it properly. It cannot just be an emotional thing. We've got to look at it mentally, intellectually, in how we're running the business. And that's what we're trying to do, to put in place structures over time that will keep the sport growing, so that whatever finances, whatever sponsorship we get that comes into the game trickles down to the very bottom, so everybody enjoys the benefits and not just the people at the top. You must remember also that the Kenya Rugby Union is not an income generating entity right now. Yet we're trying to get there where we can raise our own revenues to run many of our programs. We depend a lot on the goodwill of sponsors. Like I said, the challenges we had going last year and up to this year resulted in a lot of sponsors withdrawing their support. What has happened in the last 5-6 months is we've tried to generate goodwill once again and show them that we are changing, that we're improving the way we run our things. And truth be told, a lot of them are willing to listen to us again right now. We're able to sit and talk with them and say, this is what our plans are going forward. This is how we intend to do things. This is how we intend to account for every single penny that you get us. And they're listening. So when we have a press conference as appeared last Friday, it doesn't help us in the least. And the very people who are complaining are the guys who are going to suffer most.
But that could mean also that maybe there's some communication breakdown, if indeed that's the case you are doing. Would you say maybe it's not been communicated to the players, the technical bench, Gerald?
I don't know. You know, I've been in the trenches with you in football for the last 10 years or more. So I bring a fresh perspective coming back to rugby. And I seriously doubt there is a lack of communication, because it's an open door. You walk in, you should see people talking during our political meetings. They are very vocal and they're able to speak, and they are well spoken. So speaking is not a challenge. Then the question is, why do you choose that forum and not this other one? And it's going to continue to plague us until we set the correct mechanisms in place. And I like, because he came through a competitive process to become the CEO of the Kenya Rugby Union, and nobody seems to have a problem with that. So the question is, will the politicians allow the technocrats to do their job?
And like, just a minute, just to add on what Gerald says there, we do have mechanisms for them, if they have complaints, to talk to us about. And we're continually in communication with them. So like he says, so why use that medium? Why use that platform? Right? It doesn't help us. Because
the chairman, Omwela, said that he was also baffled to see part of the management team sitting with the players. If indeed the coaches, the technical staff are part of the management, then we are left wondering, what is the problem then? Is it you want to put it down to sheer politics? Or there are some home truths KRU are not willing to face?
No, the $64 million question is, why did they do that? That's the $64 million question. Because like I said, we were talking to them right up until Wednesday, and we had a plan to meet with them on Saturday with various club chairmen who have players in the national team, which we did meet, so that they could expound and talk about their plan going into the season. We planned it with them to meet on Saturday. But after they did this thing on Friday, we told them, look, you've lost the right to come and talk to the club chairman. And the club chairman met with me and some of the directors of the union, and they were categorical in denouncing that whole exercise and saying, why did they do this? If there are channels that you have, it cannot be a communication problem.
It should worry you then, Gerald, that with the Rio Olympics qualifying matches coming up, and also the rugby IRB series calendar, starting in the next 2 months, it should really worry everyone that the players have said they are not resuming camp, and KRU have actually postponed indefinitely their training program.
The Kenya Rugby Union, like they've said, is facing some financial challenges. We know that. Everybody knows that. It's not a secret. And they are not the first federation not to have a problem.
So you are calling on the players to understand. Can you understand?
To understand.
Stomach, the coach is saying he cannot talk to players who are not psychologically and mentally, up to the game.
But I'll give you an example. Other than the last 2 serious football sponsorships that they've had, those 2 clubs that have now signed 20 million plus have had several years where they had challenges paying their players, but their players never refused to take the field on any one day. Okay, so the difference in perception, probably on our part, we've communicated it wrongly to them over the years that, look, sometimes there is no money. There is no money. So what do? We wait. We understand also some of the problems facing some of the people who finance us. Yes, there is no organization that does not have cash flow issues. So why should that be used to stop us from going back to camp? But also don't forget, there is a big question mark remaining on our ability to qualify for the Olympic Games come November, which is an issue they have to sort out. Will they be the players to take us to that rugby nirvana that we want to be at the Olympics?
You say that you are running about six national teams. The women rugby, there's the men rugby, 15s and 7s. But then you are saying again you are short on cash. Would it make sense maybe to cut down on, put some things on hold in order for us to, move the national team to training camp in order for them to qualify for Olympics?
I don't want to sound too haughty, but we're going to qualify for the Olympics. That's I've never doubted that in the beginning. The question is, the impression given is that unless these guys are the ones, right? Unless it's these guys who are wearing the Kenya shirt, those are the only guys who can take us to the Olympics. That is not true. That is not true. There are so many people out there, and he will bear me witness, who can get onto that team and wear that jersey with pride and go and play and take us to the Olympics. So the first thing that we need to understand is wearing that jersey is a privilege. It's not a right. It's a privilege. And it's a great honor to wear it. So you do not dishonor that jersey by creating all sorts of stress. Saying that we're not going into camp because of this. We talked about this. That's the thing I don't understand. We talked about it. Right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then on Friday you turn up and say, I can't do it.
But they've earned the right, to play for the national team. By being selected at that stage, you are saying they are the best. And if you are saying that it's not their right to be there.
Hang on. Yeah. They were the best last season. We don't know who is there this season. You understand that? And there are people who have been knocking at the door, waiting for them, saying, we need to test you as well. Are you really as good as you say you are? You understand? So going forward into the Safari Sevens or going into the World 7 Series or the qualifiers, we've got people who can do the job, including them. Right? So get out on the park and prove yourself once more. That's my message. Prove yourself once more.
Ronald Bukusi sounds like they've taken a stand on this. Do you think that hardline stance he seems to to be propagating?
It's not a hardline stance. Please understand me. It's not a hardline stance. I'm just stating the facts. Wearing the jersey is a privilege. It is not a right. That is number one. Anybody would like to wear the Kenyan jersey, but it's a privilege you work towards. When it's given to you, you respect it. Okay? There are channels you need to go through if you have issues. It doesn't help us at all as a union to stand up and say this, and then tomorrow I go and knock on somebody's door and say, can you please sponsor me because of 1, 2, 3? The sponsor is going to say, but you're going to embarrass me on television. You're going to embarrass me in the press.
Putting what Ronald has said in perspective, and also what the chairman said, that they are going to sit down and even review what is happening in that technical bench, because they didn't expect the technical officials again to be sitting with the players in a press conference. Do you think we are seeing a grandstand kind of situation within KRU?
Like I've said, we are still reeling from the politics of those two elections, the main election of 2010, 2011, and the midterm elections of 2013. They are still being felt today. And the current chairman is having to pay the price. The CEO is having to do that. Now, as far as what Ron is saying is concerned, anybody who has a stake in the game would be very concerned when the senior-most players, the biggest rugby brands in Kenya, call a press conference and state what happened on Friday. It would worry anybody. The chairmen of clubs have come to the realization that immediately these players are called to the national sevens team, they stop being part of that club. They stop. Those players don't play for their clubs maybe once or twice in a whole season. They are professional sevens players. Now, what Ron is saying is that the Kenya Rugby Union could come back and get more players from these clubs to go and play professionally sevens away from the league. It's a reality and something that we need to work towards. Obviously, a lot more talking needs to happen. I'm happy the chairman has reached out and said let's meet and talk, because we cannot be pulling in two separate directions.
And the chairman has said again has been forced to start defending his position that some people are saying he's concentrating too much on the 15s rugby at the expense again of the flagship. I don't know if justified to call it a flagship team of KRU, the 7th team. Do you think that is the position, that maybe you've concentrated as a rugby union on the 15th team because you want to prove that Kenya can also do well in the 15th rugby?
The funny thing about that statement is, I think a year or so ago, the issue was we're focusing too much on 7s at the expense of 15s. That's what the debate was a couple of years ago, that you've completely neglected the 15s part of the game and you're focusing on the 7s. And now, because the 15s are doing well and they're winning, remember, now we're focusing on the 15s and we're neglecting the 7s. That is not true. The mandate of the union is across the board. We've got to look at 7s across the, at rugby across the board, whether it's 15s, whether it's 7s, whether it's women's rugby, who are doing extremely well, incidentally. And they've been invited to a World 7 Series pre-qualifier in Dublin next month, which they're training for. You don't see them on TV. Right?
Yeah.
They understand the challenges that we're facing. I had a chat with their coach on Friday and laid out, these are the challenges that we're facing. Are you still willing to go ahead? Did he hold the press conference? No, he didn't. He said, okay, let's work with what we have. Let's work with what we have. And that's all we're saying. Let's work with what we have. Everybody has challenges, like he says, and I'm sorry I'm getting passionate about this because it's really annoying. It's really annoying. And one of the values that we have as a union, at least I think we have, is integrity.
Sure.
So that when you sit down and talk about something, let's agree it, which we talked about Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday last week, and then suddenly here we go. So
that performance of the 15th team, then can we say that it's built on quicksand again, because your sponsors have pulled out? Bamburi Sevens, the Bamburi sponsors were there, trying to build up the 15th game. What do you think about all that? No,
it's not founded on quicksand. It's founded on some real solid work done by the clubs on the ground.
But it's going to stop now that Bamburi are not there.
No. The clubs continue. The game, starting from this year, let me just give you a sneak preview, is going pro. The game is going pro this year. We are looking for a mechanism in such a way that clubs are able to sustain players. The question I asked is, should these 7s players who held the press conference retire from 7s rugby tomorrow, come out of the contracts they have with KRU, where they earn solid salaries, would they be able to accept to come back to our clubs and play for 1,000 a week? Would they? And still, the jury is out on that one, because nobody is being able to answer that question sufficiently. Yes. So there is an element where the 15th game needs to come to the level where the 7s has been put. We need the 7s to stop being the flagship of Kenyan rugby, where 15s takes its place. And that's what we are fighting for. We are not saying 7s is not there, but you can't professionalize 7s in Kenya. There cannot be a 7s league, but you can have your 15s league. How are you going then to fund that pro league, like Gerald is saying, when you are facing all these financial difficulties?
These are the structures we are trying to put into place, and we're looking to approach potential sponsors in terms of, this is the challenge that we're facing. This is the value that the sponsor will get out of whatever activity that we're going to do. If the sponsor sees value in it, then they can put money into it. But the sponsor also has to be convinced, right, that every single penny he or she is going to put into this enterprise is going to bring back value, that they will not stand up and go to the television one day and say, here we go, we're having issues. Because that's the worst thing that you can do, and I really apologize to our sponsors for that, because it's bad. It's really bad. It should never have happened.
Sure, it shouldn't have happened, because we expect that once there's an office in place, they can go out there and get the money. But then we are in this position. How do you think? What is the best way forward, Gerald, so as to get everyone talking now positively about Kenyan rugby? How do we solve this mess?
Okay, the first thing that happened is we need not only to be stable, but to create the atmosphere of stability. It's very good to hear that some of the sponsors who had walked out are considering coming back. Whatever they stipulate, we are happy. We are happy that they are considering to come back. Secondly, is that the amounts of money now being given are purely based on value. Nobody's giving us CSR. So if you cannot be able to measure the value and sell it, nobody's going to give you money. Rugby, unfortunately, and football are different. Because rugby is seen, like what has happened in Masako, to bring huge crowds. Today, anybody who you approach to give sponsorship to rugby asks you to ensure they get the numbers. In football, it's the other way around. The clubs that have the least following are the ones that are signing the biggest sponsorships. Yes, here they demand, we must have the numbers. The other side, they don't demand the same.
Thank you very much, Gerald. Just in one sentence, maybe, Ronald, how would you say, where do we move to?
Where do we move?
Yeah.
To the Olympics. Where else? Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the rugby fans should sit back, be confident that we are going to Rio Olympics. Up to that point, I've been talking to Ronald Bukusi, the CEO of KRU, and then I've been talking also to Gerald Chege, who is an official of Thika Rugby Club. Viewers, that has been Sports Chat of Morning Express, and we hope to catch up with you again next week.